Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and we have another great show for you. Outstanding. It makes it so easy. Best-selling author, millions of copies sold. So easy. His name's Andrew Matthews. The book, oh, man, you're going to want to get this, called Being Happy. I would also retitle it Being Successful. Is my secondary title. His secondary title is A Handbook to Greater Confidence and Security. It is all that and more. Folks, listen, I'm telling you, if you're looking for greater success in your business and your life, I'm just telling you, this book, Being Happy, is absolutely outstanding. It is going to affect every part of your life. Get ready, take notes. Listen to the master, Andrew Matthews, as he guides you through living a new mindset and living successfully. It's a fun book to read. It's not often I get to say that books are not only so educational and so insightful, but they're also fun. And this is one of those books that does both of those really, really well. Outstanding. So let me introduce you to Andrew Matthews. Andrew Matthews is originally from Victoria Harbour, Australia, which is where he's in Australia right now. He was originally an English teacher. He later started to write books in the 90s. He now has multiple titles that are bestsellers in 48 languages. I think it's 72 countries or something like that. He quotes himself by saying, "I never planned to be an author. I just had some messages I wanted to share based on my own mistakes." His books are down to earth, I'm telling you. He illustrated them with his own cartoons. They're brilliant. The ones that have gone global are Being Happy, Follow Your Heart. They have been best-selling self-help classics. When you ask people about his books, they tell you they're easy to read, easy to relate, easy to apply, and they're fun. His sales have topped more than 7 million copies. You know what he says? He says, we don't always need new information. Sometimes we need to be reminded. I think for many of you, when you read this book, it will be not something that just want to be reminded of. It's something that you probably have heard, but not heard in the way he says it. By the way, he is an outstanding speaker, conferences worldwide. He consults corporations. I suggest highly that you hire him. And he draws his trademark cartoons through his presentations. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, and welcome to the first time ever to A New Direction, Andrew Matthews. Andrew, welcome to A New Direction, brother.
Thank you, Jay. Nice to be with you.
Let's dig right into the deliciousness, shall we? 6 chapters in this book, six filled chapters. And the first chapter is called Patterns. All right. And I want to talk about patterns because I don't think we spend a lot of time thinking about our patterns, not just of behavior, but certainly our thought. Let's talk through some of these patterns that people may have and how we develop them.
Well, the first thing is that we notice that we have patterns, and it's a problem for a lot of us that we keep reliving the same circumstances, and we never notice that it's happening or that we're creating it. And so some of us are always broke, and some of us keep having bad relationships with the same kinds of partners. And some of us end up either quitting our jobs or getting fired every few months. And if we're not aware, we might think that the universe is doing this to us and that it is unfair. But when we delve a little bit into the subconscious, we come to understand that we behave in certain ways that keeps these things just happening to us. And so a starting point for living a better life and a happier life is understanding, A, that we have a subconscious mind and that we're doing things automatically that is creating the same circumstances. But most importantly, the patterns are not us. We have a pattern, but as we change our conscious thinking, so our conscious thoughts tend to filter into our subconscious, and gradually we can change to being a happier person, to being a person who enjoys fulfilling and permanent relationships to being someone that keeps a job.
When I think about these patterns of thought, which of course translates into behavior eventually, when I start thinking about this, the one thing I keep coming to mind is that we're so unaware of them. And I believe that as humans go, and humans are messy, but as human beings go, we could do so much better with these patterns if we just had more self-awareness. Is that is that pretty true?
Absolutely. So, for many of us, we're just like living asleep, and we think that the universe is just doing it to us, and we our self-talk is something like, why do my neighbors treat me like this? Why do men treat me like shit? How come I'm always broke? But as we become more aware, we start to be aware, for example, of our self-talk, and we might be saying to our friends, "I've never got any money. I can never afford this." And so, um, if we have for example, if we have a belief that we are always broke, then our self-talk tends to reflect that. And then we tend not to set ourselves achievable goals in terms of our finances because it's our belief system. And we create for ourselves a self-image uh, that perpetuates the same situations. And so uh, we can talk about, for example, changing habits. We might say, well, in order to change a habit, then you need a clear goal or you need willpower. Well, they may be useful, but what you first need is you need to have an image of yourself as a different person. And uh, willpower will never defeat a self-image that says I'm overweight or I'm unhappy or I can't make my relationships work. And so early on, we need to get a sense that I'm not a victim of these patterns. These patterns are not me. And as I change my self-talk and as I change how I think, and as I begin to create a vision of the me that I want to become, so I move toward that. So the exciting thing is it's not even about willpower so much as changing the picture of who this person is that is me.
So you talk about change is always challenging, and we've kind of alluding that to here a little bit. And you say whenever we decide to change, we meet resistance. But you say further here, we are always tested to see if we're serious. What do you mean when you say we're tested to see if we're serious when it comes to change?
Yeah, and that just seems to be one of the quirks of how life works. And I invite you, our listeners, to notice this. Whenever you say, you get up tomorrow and you say, okay, I'm going to be fit, I'm going on my diet, that is the day that you're going to get a call from your friend that says, let's go out for cake and let's go out for donuts. And whenever you say, I'm going to start my fitness regime, you can bet that within a day or so, um, something's going to come up where you say is an excuse not to go to the gym. Whenever you say, I'm going to start being more forgiving, then somebody's got to cut you off on the freeway within like 5 minutes. And we just notice, and that is how life is. And I can't explain it, but many of us notice that. And so if we're ready for that, when we say, I'm going to make a change to this life of mine, if we're ready that very shortly we're going to be challenged, even if we say, I'm going to put some rules in place for my kids, you can bet that within an hour, those kids are going to start testing the rules that you've put in place. It's just how life works. And we just smile and we say, I know this.
Where do these patterns get formed?
You cut out for a minute there, Jay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where do these patterns get formed?
Well, they're simply in our subconscious, and our subconscious actually controls like 90% of our life, and we don't realize it. So, for example, we are born with certain patterns, like we have a heart that beats and we breathe automatically. But then we create a whole array of patterns through our conscious thoughts becoming a part of our subconscious programming. So we learn to walk without thinking. We learn to speak without thinking. We learn to um, eat fairly tidily without thinking. It's just automatic. And so many of our things uh, that are now subconscious programs are a result of our thinking and how we've responded to the world around us.
We talked a little bit about our self-image, but it seems that self-image is so critically important to our mindset as well as your self-worth. Put it together about our self-image and our self-worth in terms of how we tend to think and what we need to be thinking.
Well, the first question we might ask is, do you need to love yourself or do you need to even like yourself? And you have to at least like yourself because we create the life that we feel we deserve. And so if I don't like myself, I will stay with a partner that treats me badly. I will stay working for a boss for 20 years that treats me badly because I think that's all that I deserve. If I don't like myself, I will punish myself with what I eat or what I drink or other substances that I put into my body. If I don't like myself, I will ignore exciting opportunities because I think that would create the life that I don't even think I deserve. And so it's critical that at some point we say, well, I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best and I cut myself some slack. Here's something that we can do. We can get ourselves a photograph of ourselves when we were maybe 2 or 3 years old, when we didn't have all the answers and we were just living life the best way that we knew how. And we can put that photograph somewhere that we see it every day, maybe on our desk or on the refrigerator. And we treat ourselves with the same kindness with which we would treat that 3-year-old child. Because the fact is, we still don't have all the answers and we're still just living life the best way that we know how.
How does our health play a role in the idea of these pattern development, our self-image and our self-worth?
Well, if we look at from the reverse angle, we say, how does happiness affect our health? Then we notice that, and people have said to me, um, why is happiness so important? My question is, what is more important than being happy? Because when you're happy, you have more energy. When you're happy, you are healthier. When you're happier, you attract people that are like-minded and positive who want to be around you. And when you're happy, then you have a network of people that can support you. And also, when you're happy, um, you solve problems 20% faster. You're talking about health. Happy doctors diagnose illnesses 30% more accurately. So, so happiness is not some optional extra. Happiness is your foundation. And to the extent that you take action so that you feel better about who you are and where you live, so you will be healthier. And so it's much easier to start from the point of view of what are some things, what are some decisions that I can make that I can be happier? And we can look at some of those.
Yeah. Well, I think we will here as we're moving on. I have a question though, um, because I think we ignore our environments and how our environments and the people we are around affect our thinking, our attitude, our mindset. Talk to us about, um, because you have subtitles here that says we become a part of our everyday world. Talk to us about how we're influenced by people and influenced by our environment.
Yeah, well, yeah, to make an analogy, maybe if you, our listeners, have ever walked into a public convenience, a public toilet, and you go in there, you think this is terrible. This, you want to be sick, but you stay in there because you're on a mission. You've got a job to do, and you may notice that if you're in there for like even a minute or two, by the time you're about to leave, it doesn't smell quite so bad. And if you were stuck in there accidentally for an hour or so, you might say, seems perfectly okay to me. Now, here's the thing, we get used to what we're around. So you will know people who live close to airports and you go stay with them and the planes are keeping you awake, they don't even notice them.
Right.
And so it is with the people that we're around. If we're around people who complain a lot, in the beginning we think, what's the matter with these people? But if we're around them long enough, like months and years, it becomes normal. If
Mm,
we're around people with unhealthy habits and we think, I can't believe how much they drink and they take these tablets. But if you're around long enough, then maybe you start with the same habits.
mm,
And similarly, if you are around people who are always looking for good things and saying, what do I like about my boyfriend? What do I like about this job? What's good about living in America even now? Then you begin to think like them. So, just as it happens, if we live close to a train station or if we're locked in a public toilet, so it happens with the people we're around. Jay, you will know the expression that your net worth will be the average of the 5 people that you spend most time with. And similarly, we develop the habits and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people that we spend time with.
Um, I want to move into uh, prosperity and the money block because you do spend quite a bit of time here talking about our conscious and our subconscious thoughts create our life, especially when it comes to money and prosperity. Talk to us about the thought process of the money block and how we overcome it.
Well, there's a lot of ideas that we can grow up with that block us from becoming prosperous. And uh, one of the fundamental ones is the idea that rich people aren't nice and money is the root of all evil. So if we believe that rich people are not nice people, then obviously we want to be seen as nice. So we do things that even prevent us from being rich so that we can have people like us. Um, a lot of some people just grow up believing that rich people are crooks, and so they don't want to be seen as crooks, and so they make decisions that lead to them not being rich and not being seen as crooks. So there's some of us grow up believing that God will love us uh, if we're humble and God won't like us if we're rich, or it's a sign of being selfish if we're prosperous. And so for many of us, we have this idea, well, God will like me if I'm humble and if I'm not successful. So if we have any of those ideas, then that's going to be holding us back. And we've got to we've got to actually dig those up and realize what are those core ideas, and they become subconscious belief systems that are preventing me from making the decisions and doing the work and saving the money and living the life that is going to lead to greater prosperity. And unless we're very honest with ourselves and we say, okay, where did this idea come from? It may be simply that we grew up being told things like there's no such thing as a free lunch, or um, being told that money doesn't grow on trees, or being told that being surrounded by a family that are always saying, you know, we never have enough money and you will never have money and life is a struggle. And if we believe that, then we may basically just throw up our hands and say it's not worth trying anymore. But as our core belief changes, and this can happen by being around people who are prosperous and take care of themselves and live in a nice home and take nice vacations and save money responsibly and set themselves achievable goals, then we start to see that, hey, their entire strategy and their accumulation of their habits has led to their prosperity, and that can work for me just the same.
His name is Andrew Matthews. The book is called Being Happy, a handbook to greater confidence and security. I'm going to say not only being happy, be successful, because I'm telling you, your success is going to be driven by the way you think. Absolutely fabulous book. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Zoundy, new sponsor, game changer for authors, publishers, professionals, and audiobook space. I am part of Zoundy. I love Zoundy. It helps maximize your audiobook reach. So, for example, if you're going to speak to 500 people, right, I can actually send 500 people an audible copy of my book, okay? And they can read it before I ever get to the conference. But here's what's better. I get their email addresses and I can start interacting with those people. It's awesome. Instead of like some other audio books where I never know who's reading the book, I now know. So listen, if you're launching your first audiobook, got a catalog of them, check out zoundy.com, zoundy.com. Now, I have a special offer. If you go to zoundy.com/J, that's JAY, and use my code JAY25, you're going to unlock some special savings directly from Zoundy. Now, listen, check it out. It's zoundy.com/J, J25, JAY25. You're going to be so glad that you did. And Linda Craft Team Realtors, listen, 40 years top of the game in real estate. They are the transition real estate people. And you go, what do you mean transition? I mean life transition. They've been doing this so long, they know how to take the stress out of that part of your life transition. And let's face it, every place you've ever lived has been a life transition. They know how to do it. They've been doing it successfully for 40 years. Check them out, lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Andrew Matthews, best-selling author, millions of copies sold. This book in particular, Being Happy, outstanding book. I think if he renamed it Being Successful, I think it would be equally okay as well. Absolutely fantastic. Andrew, let's jump to chapter 2 entitled Living in the Now. And when you say living in the now, and you have a subtitle that says live now, exclamation point, talk to us about live now.
So what can happen is that we postpone our happiness. We might even do it like this. I'm having a lousy week and it's only Tuesday. And I think, well, if I can just make it through this rotten week, okay, I've got a hot date on Friday. So I'll just struggle through the week. And by Friday, I can be happy. So Friday evening comes and I head for the restaurant. I pull out into the traffic. I'm in a traffic jam. So now I'm saying I'll be happy when I get to the restaurant. So I'm stuck in this traffic jam for 45 minutes. I arrive at the restaurant late. Now there's a whole line in front of me. And I'll say, "Oh, this is this is not what I planned for. Anyway, I'll be happy when I get a table." So I'm waiting in line for another 30 minutes saying I'll be happy when I get my table. I get my table, but my date hasn't arrived because she was stuck in traffic. And then the waiters are so busy and they're short staffed. And I'm thinking I'll be happy when I see a menu. I'll be happy when I can order my food. And finally, my date arrives. I order my food. Um, my chicken parmigiana arrives and I take a photo of it and I put it on Instagram. Now I'm thinking I'll be happy when someone likes my chicken parmigiana. And it's nuts that we can live our entire life thinking the next moment is going to be better than this moment. And the next moment is never going to be better than this moment, especially if when you get to the next moment, you're thinking about the moment after that.
Mm.
So we have to say, this is my life, what is happening right now. As people say, well, where do goals fit in? Goals are critical in that they give us a sense of control and a sense of direction. But having set our goals, and one of the goals is going to be, I'm going to be happy today. Having set our goals, we focus on what am I doing right now? And do I have my mind on my kids that I'm sitting with right now? Do I have my mind on this work that I'm doing right now? Or do I keep on drifting off into the future? And I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's something, and it goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Jay. It's this awareness thing. Once we start to monitor, then we begin to say, hey, I'm with my kids. Why don't I just listen to what my kids are saying and enjoy my kids?
Yeah, well, we have you talk about it here. You say that we have a tendency to think about and worry about multiple things at the same time, which is a danger because we never can live in the moment if we're, thinking about or worrying about these multiple things. So we never live in the present. We never live in right now. And that makes it difficult for us because then what happens is we miss out on so much of the happiness that we could have because we're worrying about tomorrow. I'm not against goal setting. I think goal setting is great, but I think sometimes there's an overemphasis on setting the goals and worrying about the outcome versus enjoying the process and enjoying the journey.
Yeah, beautifully said. And if we're talking about success, for example, and you're saying that being happy, being successful, interchangeable. Here's the fact. A lot of things that we try won't even work. Um, you make an ad for YouTube, you think this thing's going to go viral, and in a month's time you've had 3 views, and 2 were your mother. Or you write a manuscript and you send it off to a publisher, and you think they're going to love it, and they hate it. Or for example, um, you apply for a job, you think this one is mine. It is every reason they should employ me, and you don't get the job. Or um, you go on a date, a blind date, and you think maybe this is going to be the one. And halfway through the evening, you're thinking, nah, maybe not. Many of the things that we do and that we try don't work nearly as well as we hope they might. And that is life. But here's the thing. If we put everything we have in the present, we put everything that we have into everything we do, number one is we enjoy it so much more. Number two, we do gather momentum, maybe not the momentum that we wanted, but by having a high work rate and by giving our best to whatever is under our nose, we gather momentum. And then one day, when you least expect it, some opportunity, some person will come along that is even more wonderful than you had imagined. And it's usually when you least expect it.
Mm. So true. So true. And well said. I want to talk to you about in this chapter, you devote some time to forgiveness. And I think forgiveness is critical, not just for others, but also for ourselves. Talk to us about forgiveness and living in the now.
Well, the myth is that we think that, let's say that you're my boss, Jay, and you give me the sack. And so I say, I will never forgive Jay as long as I live. And I spend the next 20 years thinking that I'm punishing you if I don't forgive you. And you don't even know. You're at the movies. You're having a great time, and I'm pacing the floor and I'm kicking the furniture. We don't forgive people for their benefit. We forgive people for our benefit. And the sooner that we realize that it's a gift that we give to ourselves.
Mm,
And so um, forgiveness is something where we say, and I don't even need to agree with what you did. I just have to want my life to work.
mm,
So once we understand that forgiveness is something that we do to give ourselves back some happiness, and also here's the interesting thing: when I begin to forgive you for giving me the sack, I'm going to start to be a little bit more forgiving of my own shortcomings, because as we cease to make other people guilty, so we automatically begin to make ourselves less guilty, because that is just how things work. So uh, uh, those of you listening may be saying, "Yeah, but forgiveness isn't easy," and I know, and I appreciate that. You say, "Well, how can you begin to forgive people?" Well, you might don't start with the hard stuff. If Jay gave me the sack and I'm having a hard time with that, then I'm not going to start with that. Maybe I'll start with forgiving the people that cut me off on the freeway, and then I'll work my way up to my noisy neighbors. And so I developed some muscle in the forgiveness area.
mm.
And I might find that in a month or two, I say, okay, I've had some success with little things. Now I can start to forgive that bastard Jay for sacking me when I was doing a wonderful job.
That's that's awesome. That's awesome. I think that's the first time anybody's ever used me in that term before on the air, but I appreciate it. I have a great appreciation for it. You end this chapter with the importance of humor, and we do not talk about humor enough, in my opinion. Talk to us about humor, the importance of it, and living in the now, how that contributes to our happiness and ultimately our success.
I say in Being Happy, and you're making me remember a few things, because I wrote Being Happy 35 years ago. Um, I say in Being Happy that we should take humor more seriously.
Mm,
And I also tell a story of Norman Cousins, who had a chronic illness, and he was basically told that you're going to die of this. And he got himself movies, Marx Brothers movies and candid camera movies, and he basically laughed his way back to health, which is a wonderful story, and a reminder that, you know, a decision to see the funny side. We trigger endorphins, we trigger all of the healing chemicals within our body when we decide to laugh, and it can be a decision that we laugh sooner rather than later. One of the interesting things about comedians and humor is that humor always seems to be based on truth and pain. And in your life, probably you notice that you've got a fair amount of truth that you wouldn't have chosen, and often a fair amount of pain. So you have the ingredients to have a laugh. It's just a matter of how long do you want to wait? And happy people choose to say sooner than later, let me see the funny side
Mm.
of this.
So true. So true. I agree with that sentiment. So I love to laugh. Laughter is contagious. You can't be sad and laugh at the same time. You can't be angry and laugh at the same time. It's so important. And I love the way you say that. We need to get more serious about humor because it is critical to living in the now and living the life that we want.
And it is a choice that we make.
Mm.
As happiness is in many ways a choice. I mean, people say, well, do you actually choose it? We've all seen toddlers, 2-year-olds, playing on the furniture and they fall on their head. And the first thing they do is they look around to see who's watching. And based on the audience, they decide whether they're going to laugh or cry. And we think, that's really cute. But we forget that we do the exact same thing. We find out that we were left off somebody's birthday party invitation list, and we have an instant decision now. Is this going to ruin my day, or am I just going to laugh? And so every day and many times a day, we're making that choice. Am I going to be happier? Am I going to let this ruin my day? Am I going to see the funny side of it?
His name is Andrew Matthews. The book, Being Happy, a handbook to greater confidence and security, now available in the U.S. and Amazon. It is absolutely this is the new edition, by the way. Excellent book. You're going to really enjoy it. You're listening to Andrew Matthews and me here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, I want to talk again about Zoundy. I can't talk about them enough. I love it. It's fantastic. Zoundy has created links for me that I can give away my book on any of the social media platforms. So like I can have a link for Instagram, for Facebook, for LinkedIn, for TikTok, specifically so that I know where my people saw my book and are starting to read it. And then I can interact with them because I have their email address where I can have an interaction with them of what they enjoyed about the book, what they didn't like about the book, how I could improve about the book, what they would like to see me write in the future. It's so good. If you're an author, a publisher, I'm just telling you, you're missing out on being able to reach your audience if you're not using Zoundy. So check them out, Zoundy, ZOUNDY.com. Now listen, I have a special offer only through A New Direction. If you go to Zoundy, ZOUNDY.com /J, Jay, right? And then you put in the code JAY25, you're going to unlock all sorts of special savings. So check it out, Zoundy.com /J, use J25, JAY25. You're going to be so glad you did. And Linda Craft Team Realtors, listen, folks, check out the website, lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. I think it is the most comprehensive real estate website that is out there in existence. I just believe that simply because I've been on a lot of real estate websites and there doesn't seem to be anything that compares with what they do. Why do I say that so confidently? Well, sure, you can get fine listings and everything else that any other website does. But here's what they go the extra level. First of all, they have a podcast called Real Estate Right Now, where they're talking to people in the now who know exactly what's happening in the market on all sorts of different topics. You need to check it out. Here's the other thing that they do. Say you're moving with the kids. Do you know they have a child psychologist who wrote about how to move with children? They have a veterinarian who talks about how to move with your pets. So many things on lindacraft.com. Check it out. It's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend Andrew Matthews, all the way from Australia. And it's like 8:30 in the morning, or almost 9 o'clock in the morning there, and it's the evening here. And so if you're hearing a little bit of a delay, it's because we're literally way over in the other side of the world. So if you hear a delay, don't be alarmed by that. That's just part of what happens here. Andrew, I'm going to go into chapter 3, your mind. Specifically, I want to talk about why we gravitate in the direction of our most dominant thoughts. Help us.
It just happens that the way that we see ourselves and the things that we think about, we move toward. And it even happens in relation to the things that we say we don't want. And this is something that is rarely covered. And so one of the reasons that I wrote Being Happy was that I wanted to remind people that we spend so much of our life saying, I don't want to be fat, I don't want to be miserable. We go and play a game of baseball, and the ball is coming toward us deep in left field, and we say, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it. And what is the thing we do? We drop it. We have a speech that we need to make, and we tell ourselves for a whole week, don't screw it up, don't forget your lines, don't screw it up, don't forget your lines. And we get up there and we freeze. And then we say, why does life punish me like this? And it is because we move toward what we think about. And also, our mind cannot process a negative command. It's a little bit like if I want to go to the supermarket and I'm using my Google Maps on my phone, I want to go to the supermarket and I say, not the airport. It will not get me to the supermarket. I have to say, I want to get to the supermarket. And so we always have to be focusing on what we want. And if we tell ourselves what we don't want, I don't want to be miserable, I don't want to be broke, I don't want to be lonely, I don't want to be embarrassed, I don't want to be late, I don't want to forget this book, then we move toward that. And so in those examples, we can see how this happens for us all the time. And similarly, we notice that extraordinary performance, if you could get inside the head of a Roger Federer or a Tiger Woods at his prime, never ever are they thinking, don't miss this shot. It just doesn't even enter their head, because they're just thinking about, this is what I want. And we see that as evidence in every successful person. Their entire focus is, where am I going? What do I want? What do I want for my health? What do I want for my career? Where is my bank balance going? What do I want for my health? And we move toward it. And to answer your question, why is it important? We attract people who help us to achieve our goals. Subconsciously, we somehow connect with them. We notice opportunities that are consistent with what we're thinking about. And then we obviously organize our days and our time consistent with, this is where I'm heading. So I guess the underlying law for life and for the successful life is, figure out what you want and then focus on that, and never ever veer off into this, well, I don't want that. People think, well, if I say I don't want to be miserable, why aren't I happier? Because they are a million miles apart.
Right. It's so true. I play golf badly, just because I don't practice enough. If I practiced, I would be good. And when I did practice regularly, I was a good golfer. Not great, but I was good. And if I ever had to hit over water or hit over a sand trap, I would sometimes say to myself, and I had to change this thought process. Okay, just don't put it in the water. Just don't put it in the sand trap. And inevitably, what would happen? I'd put it in the water or I'd put it in the sand trap. So it really is true. I had to start thinking, put it on the pin, hit it to the pin, right? I could chip this right to the pin. I'm going to get it within 5 feet of the pin. When I started making that mind shift, right? I mean, my swing isn't great, but I had more confidence of going and getting there. And maybe I wasn't within 5 feet, but I was on the green and I'm putting. But I had to stop the thought process of don't put it in the sand trap, don't put it in the water. Instead, put it in get this thing in the fairway. Let's do this. Let's get this thing in the fairway. Let's put it on the green. That changed the way I think. No matter what my skill was as a golfer, it changed the way I would play the game because I was thinking not thinking here's what I'm going to do. And it is really, really important.
And don't will never work. It
No.
will never work. We've all had the experience of seeing our favorite football team, and they are just thrashing the city that we just love to beat. This is just wonderful. We're in heaven. This is wonderful. They are so far in front. We'd think that they could never lose. And about 10 minutes from the end, our team, you can see it. They start to tell themselves, we don't want to lose this. Don't lose this game, whatever you do. Play safe because we don't want to lose it.
Mm.
And they get steamrolled by the opposition. And we say, well, what happened there? And the fact is, you can't win a game by saying don't lose. And you can't win in life by telling yourself don't lose.
Mm. Beautiful. That's beautiful. I want to talk here in this chapter about imagination. Well, as we age, and you point this out, we have a tendency to not have a very good imagination. Talk to us about the importance, even as we grow older, how our imagination plays a role.
Well, from the very beginning, we might say if we're around little kids and we say, well, they've got such an extraordinary imagination. Where do they get this from? And you know, the reason is that it is critical. Your imagination is so critical for you learn to walk and talk and run and read and play games and because we cannot do a single thing in life without imagining it first. We create a picture. Um, we've now come to understand that when you imagine, you actually change the imprints on your brain cells uh, in the same way that you would change them. If you imagine yourself uh, uh, hitting a drive on the fairway, you change your brain cells physically the same when you imagine that as when you do it. But the advantage of imagining is that you can do it perfectly. And so there's many instances where it's even better to imagine practice rather than do the practice because as you imagine it, as you imagine yourself confident and coherent and having a wonderful time in front of a group giving a speech, and as you pattern that, then you create the program whereby you can go and give a confident speech when you used to be someone who hated speaking in front of crowds. So basically, imagination is what patterns our brain cells for perfect performance. And when we perhaps throw our hands up and say, well, kids learn so much faster than I do. Well, it's just that they continue to use their imagination when perhaps we've stopped. And as older people, as we say, okay, I want to get back into this habit of imagining myself doing whatever I want to do, I will even do it if I'm driving in a strange city and I'm lying in bed before getting up in the morning. I will imagine myself driving confidently and happily in this strange city that I've never driven in, and it's always going to be helpful. If I'm going to a function and I don't know anybody, I will imagine myself, even, I'm in my 60s, I will imagine myself walking into this function and being comfortable and happy and interacting and connecting. And so my brain has a program whereby I can do that. And so our imagination remains critical. It's not just for 5-year-olds.
Mm. I want to talk about in this chapter the power of words. I don't think I think it's so we're so unconscious of our words. We don't understand the power of them. Help us really, really understand the power of what we say out loud to ourselves and to others.
Well, thoughts program our subconscious, but words program our subconscious even more so because, I mean, this, we're hearing it and we're saying it and we're feeling it. And so um, if we listen to the language of people who struggle with life, then we hear that they have a language where they're critical of themselves. I'm a loser. The only luck I ever have is bad luck. Watch me screw this up. No one likes me. And uh, I mean, that becomes our total subconscious program. So if you want to thoroughly imprint a program that is going to ruin your life totally, then you don't just think it, then you say it. There's other aspects to what we say. For example, we all know that what we think about, we talk about. If I think about food, then I'm probably going to start talking about food. But the reverse is also true. If I talk about something, then I'm going to think about it more. And so if I criticize myself with other people, then when I'm away from that conversation, it's still running through my mind. If I complain, for example, if I, again, what I talk about, I think about, if I complain about my life, then even when I'm not complaining, I'm still thinking about what I've just been talking about, which is a reason why complaining is a really bad idea.
Mm.
So, what I say in being happy and what I encourage anyone to do is to never, from this day onward, never ever criticize yourself. Fine to acknowledge that you're not perfect, but you don't need to criticize yourself because every time you say, I'm a loser, I'll screw this up, then you are imprinting that program more deeply on your subconscious and you're going to get more of that. So if you're in a situation where you can't find anything good to say about yourself, just make an agreement that you say nothing.
Mm, so good. Andrew, we've done our hour already. It's gone so fast. I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. I just saw you look at the clock going, really? We've already done our time? And we have done our time. Tell people how they can get a hold of you if they'd like to either learn more information, if they'd like to hire you to speak or to consult. How can they get a hold of you?
Great. Well, thank you. So I have a website, andrewmatthews.com. And if you would like to receive a little bit of joy in your email letterbox every 2 weeks, I do a newsletter. It's just like maybe 100 words and a cartoon because I'm a cartoonist and I illustrate all my books, and you'll see my cartoons in there. You can see them behind me. Um, so subscribe to my newsletter, and if you become too happy, you can unsubscribe at any time. Um, all of my books are on Amazon, So you will find Being Happy, Follow Your Heart, my brand new book, Bouncing Back, which is about resilience. So they are in hard copy. You can get them in ebook, Bouncing Back and Follow Your Heart. If you like your books narrated with an Australian accent, then that's me. And by all means, get in touch with me if you're having a conference and you want a speaker to come and draw cartoons while he speaks. That's what I do.
That's awesome. Stay with me, will you please, Andrew? It's been great having you with me. Folks, it's the show. It's what I say to you every week. You're in control of three things: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. Life does not always deal us what we want, but here's the truth. You choose your attitude. You choose your effort, and that's tied to your excellence. So how excellent will you choose to be today? And resiliency is up to you. It's up to you to get back up. Yeah, we get punched in the mouth or punched in the gut, but you need to get back up. Why? Because we need you on the team and you're worth it. I'll be back next week with another guest, another great book. It's going to be another great show. You had a lot of choices. You chose us. I thank you for that. You know what? Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, wherever you see or hear the show. Give us a positive review. We'd love to hear from you, especially if those of you who are watching us on DBTV, especially on Apple TV now. Thanks for watching. We're really grateful for you to do that. And as I say to you all over the world, you know what that is. Ciao, everybody.